Welcome back, my friends. It is midnight on September 5th, and we are live streaming on YouTube tonight. And I'm going to be going over a recommended $1,500 home theater system. I promised you that every time I'd be updating this guide, I would be coming back here and doing a YouTube video to kind of expand upon the choices we made in this guide and why we put certain products in there, and to give you some alternatives in case you can't get these products where you're located at, or if you just want something, more of a diversity of options to choose from. So I tried to choose as many products as I could through Amazon just for convenience, that you guys can buy everything in one location. But at this price point, actually, there were some really good values that from companies that don't sell their products on Amazon. So what I wanted to do was open up a screen share here and go over the article on what I'm doing here. And forgive me, it's been a while since I've done this screen sharing on this program. I was using a different program, but for doing my live streams. So I'm kind of in between two different programs. So I hope everybody could see this now. I just published this article yesterday. It's a $1,500 5.1 channel expandable recommended home theater system. And what I mean by expandable is you can buy this now in a 5.1 configuration, just this system pictured here. And then in the future, you could add a second subwoofer, and you could add a pair of in-ceiling speakers, so you could have Atmos and you could have DTS-X. So basically you will have immersive surround sound. And I think when I calculated that all out, if you add the second sub and the in-ceiling speakers, the whole system comes out to $2,000, and that's including the Blu-ray player, the Ultra HD Blu-ray player. So if you don't need that, you could save yourself 150 bucks or so. So let me go over some of this with you. Speaker selection is really, you got to put most of your budget towards speaker selection when you're dealing at this price. And I really think for about $1,000, it's hard to beat this RSL speaker system. There are 5 identical satellites. They have like a 4-inch driver and a 1-inch tweeter, and it's got the Speedwoofer 10S. And I like this brand RSL. It's a family-run business. It's father and son. They were around years ago, and then they sold off their business, and then recently came back, maybe 6 years ago or so. But they put a lot of effort into these speakers, and we've reviewed these very favorably. I try to choose products that we either reviewed or we have direct experience with. And these are nice little satellite speakers. I'm not 100% sold on their patented slot loading port here. And it doesn't really matter because you don't get a lot of bass out of these speakers, let's be honest. I think their 3dB points rated somewhere between 80 and 100 hertz. Personally, if I was doing this system and you only did one sub, I'd probably cross the subwoofer over at 80 hertz and then just set up your satellite speakers. But if you do eventually add a second sub, which I highly recommend, I would probably move the crossover point up to 100 hertz, and then I would place both subs towards the front of the room, either in the corners, one on opposite sides, or 1/4 and 3/4 length of the wall. And then I would cross them over at 100 hertz. And if you have a receiver that has dual sub outs with independent control, which this receiver that I'm going to recommend doesn't, it's just a parallel sub out. But if you do have a receiver that has dual subwoofer outputs and it could be configured as stereo bass, that's one of the few times I recommend stereo bass, when you do a higher than 80 hertz crossover and you're able to place those subwoofers towards the front of the room. So anyways, we're just going to assume for the moment you're just doing a 5.1 system. This Speedwoofer 10S is a really good sub. In fact, it got one of our Product of the Year awards several years ago. And it's got a 10-inch high excursion driver and a ported enclosure. And there are other subs in this price range. I think the sub is $400 shipped. There are other subs in this price range, but dollar for dollar, this subwoofer gives you really great performance, and it's not too big. A lot of times when you're setting up a home theater system, your significant other, whether it be a wife or whatever, doesn't want to see a big subwoofer in the room. The Speedwoofer 10S is smaller than most ported subs, and it's only slightly larger than most sealed subs in its category. So for $400, this is a hard subwoofer to beat. I would take this subwoofer over a SVS SB1000, but I think the PB1000 might have an edge over because it's got a bigger box and it's got a bigger port. So you might get a little bit more extension out of a PB1000, but it's a bigger sub and it's $100 more. The other subwoofer you might want to consider if you don't want the Speedwoofer 10S for whatever reason, and you can accommodate a bigger sub, then I would recommend the HSU, the SU Research, the VTF1 MK3. If you look at this subwoofer, it's a ported sub, so it's a bigger box. $400, but that doesn't include shipping, so it's a little bit more money than the Speedwoofer 10S. But if you look at the output on this subwoofer, they give you the CEA 2010 measurements, which we do on all the subs we review. They're doing it at 1 meter peak. So if you're going to compare it to the measurements that we have on our website, we do it at 2 meter RMS. So you got to add 9 dB to the 2 meter RMS ones to have equivalent output to the 1 meter peak. Standard for the industry is 2 meter RMS. I wish that everybody would just do that instead of doing this 1 meter peak. But anyway, when we did compare the SPL output of the VTF1 MK3 versus the RSL, the HSU has about a 2 dB advantage pretty much across the board. So for example, at 25 Hertz, I believe the RSL Speedwoofer 10S would do 107 dB. Not a huge difference. It's not, in order to sacrifice 2 dB and have a smaller box, I think it's a great trade-off. But the other advantage that the HSU has is you could do 2 subs for $749. That's a pretty good deal. I'm not sure how much shipping would be. I think if you add shipping, oh here it is, shipping and handle and 112. So yeah, I mean it basically comes out to about the same price as the Speedwoofer 10S. But quite frankly, if you're going to use the RSL speaker system, I would personally choose to just stay with the Speedwoofer just because it aesthetically matches the rest of the system. And it's just, it's a great system. It works well together. Look, we have our Product of the Year award from 2015 here. So this is a really solid system. It's put together well. Sounds good. I had these satellites on my desk to try out a couple of times, and I thought they sounded just fine. But they definitely need a subwoofer. You can't run these without a sub. So that's the system for $1,000. If you do want, oh, by the way, not to keep jumping around, but the Speedwoofer 10S gets our Bassaholic medium rating, which is a really good room size rating for a small sub. And you can read all about our Bassaholics ratings and our Bassaholic room size rating protocol, which I'm not going to go over here because it's out of the scope of this discussion. So anyways, back to this system. If you, for some reason, don't want to do small speakers and you still want to do tower speakers in this system, then you can kind of go back to what we did with the $750 recommendation system, where I had the Dayton Audios. This is still a good option for you. You could use the MK442s for the main channels, and then the 442 for the center channel. They have a small center channel, and then bookshelves for the surrounds. That's one option, alternative I should say. The other option, it's an old one, is we could go back to the Andrew Jones speakers, and Amazon still has these 5.0 system for $487. So basically under $500, and I believe that's shipped, if I'm not mistaken, if you're an Amazon Prime member. So these towers are pretty darn good for what they are. The center channel is decent. The bookshelf speakers are good. It's a well-balanced system, and it's not too unattractive. It actually looks okay with the grills on. I'm sure they have a picture here. So this is still a good system. It's an old but good system. That's another alternative if you can't do bookshelf speakers and you want to have some towers. And I think we have, in this price range, you can also look at some other options. I know we had some Fluence ones. I've reviewed some Fluence speakers in the past, and they've been kind of a mixed bag. Their flagship towers actually had to be redesigned when we got them in because the crossovers were messed up. But they fixed that, and some of their budget stuff has been pretty good. So I don't want to throw in Fluence without knowing what their current crop of speakers look like without measuring them. So basically all the speakers that we're recommending in this system, we have the RSL, we have the Dayton Audio, and we have the Andrew Jones. I've reviewed and measured all that stuff, so I know that that stuff is good. I could sleep well at night telling you guys that these are good, viable options for you. So moving on to receivers, Onkyo always drops the gauntlet for the value, man. When you're looking at receivers under $1,000, I always look at Onkyo first because they seem to lead the pack. They give you the most features, they give you the most everything for the price. And this model just came out. It's the TX SR 494. It's under $400, $379, and it's a 7.2 channel or 7.1 channel receiver. They call it 7.2 because it has two subwoofer outputs, but the subwoofer outputs are in parallel. They're just basically a parallel connection. They're not independent level control and independent delay or anything like that. But the nice thing about this receiver, they call it 160 watts, which is bogus. It's not 160 watts. You can see here, it's really 80 watts a channel when you're doing it full bandwidth at 8 ohms or 2 channels driven. I've talked about this in ad nauseum before. I would hope that Onkyo is getting better with their ratings, but it's still, you know, when you look at it on Amazon and other websites, they're still doing this BS rating. So just ignore this and just know that this is an honest 80 watts a channel, 2 channels driven, 7 internal amplifiers. So initially you will use just 5 of the amplifiers to run these 5 speakers, and then the sub of course goes to the subwoofer output. So in the future you have the ability to upgrade to Atmos. You could put, you know, center 2 speakers in the ceiling mid-wall. You could do the bouncy house if you really have no other choice, but I would really tell you to at least do discrete ceiling mounted speakers, or just use at least a pair of front height speakers so you can just get some immersive effect. You have the ability here, and if you don't add Atmos, you could use those extra 2 amplifiers for another zone, so if you want to power another zone. So this is good because this gives you all the latest in 4K. It'll pass all your 4K. It does HD, HDR10, Dolby Vision. You're pretty much covered with all the latest in your HDMI codecs and DSP processing and all that stuff. That's all here. This is a good solid pick for under $400. If you can't get that one, then you can go with the Pioneer Elite. It's a similar kind of product, similar kind of features. It's a little bit more money. It has, I think it has the work with Sonos built in. Pioneer and Onkyo really are probably some of the best values when you're looking at the under $1,000 receiver category. So really I would recommend either of these. I've measured and I've taken looks at the Integra receivers in the past, so I know that the base management is good on these products, because if it's good on one of their products, then it's going to carry through pretty much to all of them. So good options here, my friends. If you need a Ultra HD Blu-ray player, then the Sony is really the only game in town for this price to reach this $1,500 mark. This Ultra HD Blu-ray player from Sony is it does 4K, native 4K. It even does your Netflix in 4K, and it does all your streaming options, you know, AAC, PCM, and it does SACD. So I don't know if you guys have SACD or not, but I still have a pretty large collection of SACD. It's nice that this thing will play that. So that's really, this is the best game in town for the money, and it's on Amazon again for $159. I'm not sure if there's any tariffs involved in that or not. It might be. So can't really control that. And then just the same kind of cable accessories we had from the $750 recommended system. I didn't really change this much. I figured if you guys need cables, you can mix and match whatever you need. There's some good values here. I do recommend you get a surge protector just because it's easy to have everything connected into one outlet strip, and then have some, you know, some immunity to lightning or surge, that kind of stuff, especially if you live in Florida. So anyways, that's the whole system. Oh, I forgot to show you the Atmos height channels. I thought I put that in here somewhere. Yeah, I did that. I put that here. I need to put a picture in this article. So if you are upgrading to Atmos and you already have the RSL speaker system, I definitely recommend this in-ceiling speaker. It's got a wide dispersion, which is ideal for Atmos, and it's a pretty good value, $125 each. You just need a pair of these and you're going to have some good immersive surround effects. And I really do recommend you guys consider that. It's not that hard to get some pre-wires into a ceiling if you want to have someone come and do that for you. Or if you're doing pre-construction, do it before you put the drywall up. You know, at least pre-wire the wires, and you can even put the cutlet for the template if you want. So that'll get you 5.1 with the ability to have 5.1.2, and then like I said, add an extra RSL speed woofer when you get a chance. This is just a beautiful sub. I didn't link the picture right. Anyways, it's got a really good driver here. It is, in my opinion, the best value for $400 for subwoofers. You really can't go wrong with this system. And then, like I said, we do have the $750 recommended system that we did last time. You can see the options here. And this system, of course, was only able to do 5.1. You can't do immersive surround sound, but very good system nonetheless. So you guys have some great options here. I just wanted to go over this with you quickly. And let me stop sharing the screen, come back to reality here, and I'll see if there's any questions worth saying and repeating here. And let's see. Is it possible to have dual subwoofers that handle different frequencies? Yeah, I answered that already in the chat. I generally avoid doing that. I recommend not doing that because most people, when they try to do that, they won't set it up right. The idea behind multi-sub is you want all of your subs to be playing the identical signal, the identical bandwidth. Otherwise, you don't get the full advantage of modal cancellations and averaging of the modal problems in your room. So generally speaking, I say no. If you do have one sub that's kind of bandwidth limited, that just doesn't have the output below, say, 30 hertz, then I guess you can put a high pass on that one, but you risk putting it out of phase with your other subwoofer. So generally, I say just try to use identical subs with the same bandwidth capabilities when you can. And of course, measure using REW and a microphone. Let's see. Gene, please, an episode on Anthem Arc someday. Yeah, you know, I have to do that. After I get finished with the Yamaha review, I'm going to go back and check out Anthem's Genesis, the new version of Arc. I did a mini Arc review when I did the Anthem STR separates, but that was before Genesis was released. And I know they've made some good upgrades to that, and it's worth covering. Someone says better than Bose. Yes, this is better than Bose. Speedwoofer is a great name. Yes, it is. Over SVS? Yeah, the Speedwoofer 10S, I would definitely take that over an SB1000. I'm not sure I would take it over a PB1000. And that brings me to another point. The other alternative to those speakers, SVS has the Prime speakers, which are pretty much equivalent to the RSL speakers. So for satellite speaker wise, I would also tell you guys the Prime is another good option, and I'll put that in the article. I'll update it. But again, I really think the advantage in this RSL system is that Speedwoofer 10S, because I think it's a good balance between an SB1000 and a PB1000 in the SVS line. Will you be reviewing an SB3000? I'm not sure if we reviewed that or not. I know we did one of the 3000s. I gotta kind of check our database. But if not, then I could probably request James Larson take a look at that. The UB5 towers are dope, may not need a sub. You always need a sub when you're doing home theater. None of those towers have sufficient bass to compete with a dedicated subwoofer. Maybe for music not, but definitely not. You need a sub for home theater. Let's see. I still have an SR608 Accio, still going good. Speedwoofer 10S is good for me. Sure it is. Yeah, there's no reason why you can't. Good luck, but I'm enjoying the RMC1. Well, that's a $5,000 processor, so that doesn't really belong in this category. And I hope you're working out all the bugs on that, because I know there's still a lot. Is it worth waiting for a receiver that has HDMI 2.1 and eARC? You know, you could wait for everything, and you know, if you wait longer, you'll have HDMI 3.0. It's like, how long you gotta wait, and how much more do you need? I mean, we already are barely streaming 4K. I think this is a good time to buy a receiver right now, to be honest with you. These are brand new models, so Onkyo is not going to release a replacement to it for at least another 8 to 10 months. Let's see. I wish you would do a review on Polk speakers that are part of Sound United and are good priced. Yeah, you know, we did a review of a pair of Polk T15 towers, or bookshelf speaker, a while back. It would actually review pretty well. It was a little bit bright. But we will take a look at some more Polk speakers. So I think that's about it. I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview. We are going to be doing a live premium, I think a live premium video tomorrow night on the Golden Ear Triton 5s. So stay tuned for that. and I hope you guys enjoyed this broadcast. And I will basically be updating more of these systems because this is a pretty high traffic area of our site that needs constant updating. I might do a 2-channel system next just to kind of change things up. You know, we have several 2-channel systems that are kind of a little long in the tooth. So hopefully I could hit some of the 2-channel for you guys that aren't into home theater and just want to focus on 2-channel hi-fi stereo. So we will do that next. If you like this video, please thumb it up. Please share it, share the wealth, and please suggest down below what alternatives you might have in this $1,500 range. Let me know what kind of systems you can put together at this price. I always like to see what the alternatives are. I think we did pretty well, but you know, there's always other ideas out there. And please join our Patreon at patreon.com/audioholics. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.